This is IAQ Radio, Indoor Air Quality Radio, the voice of the indoor air quality industry, with your hosts, Radio Joe Hughes and the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. And now, Radio Joe Hughes.
Good day and welcome to IAQ Radio Plus. This week is episode 663, and we welcome Brian Lester and Roger Berry. We're going to talk about mold remediation, a new cleaning product they represent. But before we get started, let's thank our sponsors. They're the reason we can continue doing the show. And don't forget, after the show, to continue the discussion at afterthoughts.iaqradio.com, sponsored by First On-Site. Our marquee sponsor is First On-Site at firstonsite.com. Our association sponsors are the American Industrial Hygiene Association, AIHA.org, the American Conference of Governmental Industrial Hygienists, ACGIH.org, the Cleaning Industry Research Institute, CIRI Science.org, the Indoor Air Quality Association, IAQA.org, the Institute for Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification, IICRC.org. Industry sponsors are AEML Laboratories, AEMLINC.com, Particles Plus, ParticlesPlus.com, TSI Inc., TSI.com, Sunbelt Rentals, SunbeltRentals.com, April Air, April, AIRE.com, Healthy Indoors Magazine, HealthyIndoors.com.
And now you can win a cool prize. It's time for the IAQ Radio Trivia question. Be the first to correctly answer. Simply email your answer to czlotnick@cs.com. Or if listening live, just text your answer from your computer. And now, here's the Z-Man.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to report that Dan Fugler, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, was first to identify cocoon as the protective covering of silk or other fibrous substance spun by the larvae of moths and other insects as a covering for the pupa. The IQ Radio Trivia question for today, April 29, 2022, is sponsored by TSI Inc., an industry leader in the precision instrumentation for monitoring of indoor air. Learn how to expand your IAQ investigations at TSI.com. Here's today's IAQ Radio Trivia question. In the year 1993, what was the Guinness Book of World Records holder for the most painted object in the world, and where was it located? Back to you, Joe.
Another good one, Cliff. Okay, Brian Lester has been in the carpet and in the cleaning and restoration business since 1998, when he started as a carpet cleaner doing water extractions with a portable extraction machine. He's managed thousands of drying jobs as well as countless mold remediation projects. He's currently the president of Indiana Mold Remediation and works with his brother and best friend providing remediation work to all of central Indiana.
Roger Berry is a passionate and experienced CEO and investor in high potential technology companies with a focus on sustainability. 2 decades plus of experience in private equity, covering fundraising, team incubation, deal due diligence, sustainable technology development, and ultimately as CEO for a series of technology companies, has prepared Roger for his current role in building a transformative sustainable chemical company named SUDOC. Joe, why don't you start?
All right, let's start, Brian. Let's start with you. You've been in the business for, 25 years almost.
25 years, right?
Yeah, now tell us a little bit about I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are as far as how the business has changed over that 25 years.
When we started doing mold remediation, there was no mold remediation industry. I mean, people were cleaning up mold because they ran into it on water damage jobs, but I don't know that there was a concerted effort or focus on actually cleaning up mold. I don't know that most people considered it a health risk back then. So it was starting, but it was in its infancy for sure. And it's pretty diverse now. So we've had people that have come into the industry from water damage, from the asbestos abatement and other environmental cleanup businesses, and now we've got like waterproofing companies, I think, that are coming into the industry. So we've got people from different birth industries, I guess, that are joining the fold. So it's different than it was.
Well, how's business?
We're busy. So we're a unique remediation business in that the vast majority of work that we do is not insurance covered. So I think last year I did 1% of my actual income was insurance related. Everything else we did was direct to consumer, largely uninsured or people that didn't have coverage was our business model. And I think my job average last year was $2,700, which I think is lower than a lot of remediation contractors. But we're busy. Central Indiana is a hot place to live, so the real estate business is booming here, and there's a lot of mold that's found in a real estate transaction, and we do a lot of that work.
I see. That's very unusual in my experience that only 1% of your projects are insurance. I used to do mold remediation training around the country, and I would always ask, what percent of your business is insurance related? And anywhere from 100. Well, I had very few that were 1%. There were a couple that so you're an unusual character, Cliff.
Okay, well, I got one for Roger. What's SUDOC's mission as a company?
Yeah, so it's a very big mission, which is to outperform toxic chemicals in order to remove them from our planet. But that has a very specific application to what we're talking about today. So mold remediators, as Brian was just describing, are typically using really strong chemical formulations to do their job, no matter what their process is. And we hear stories from the people who come to us about just the difficulty of that job and how hard it is. These are folks who obviously want to do a very good job. They want to remove a risk from the home, but very often those solutions are just really toxic and really difficult to work with. And so what we're excited about is our chemistry allows us to do a lot of cleaning with a lot less chemical. And that means a better result for the homeowner, but for us, also a better result for the worker, a better job.
Okay, cool.
Roger, you come from a really varied background. You've done, private equity, fundraising, team incubation, all these different, and you've been around the world, met with, world leaders and so forth. I'm wondering what drew your attention to this particular industry?
Cliff, I'll tell you, Joe, I'll tell you a personal story, which is, 2 years ago, I had a pulmonary embolism and, 30% mortality rate, could have died. And 3 months after that, these three characters found me. One was a very prominent financial investor, Hunter Lewis, great guy. He's an environmentalist on the board of the number of environmental associations. A guy named Pete Myers, who co-authored a book 25 years ago called Our Stolen Future, which started to talk about the relationship between how many chemicals we use and how it's impacting our hormone systems negatively. And then the third person was Dr. Terry Collins from Carnegie Mellon University, who had dedicated his life to developing a chemistry that would be sustainable and in balance with nature, but very powerful. And they asked me to build a company with their capital and this chemistry. And it's just been a dream come true. Now we have a platform technology, can do a lot of different things, but this crazy guy named Brian Lester had been using a previous version of this chemistry to clean mold stains. And so it's kind of a funny, odd couple story, but Brian and I just started talking as we started this mission, and, he's one of my best friends now, and he just hit it off. And, to meet Brian is to realize how infectious his enthusiasm is. And I started to learn about this industry, learn about its importance, the good jobs that many people are doing, but also to learn about its challenges and how difficult it is for small companies to keep workers because the work is hard. And if we can bring a product to the market, that's great. But even more so, if we can help make this work better for these fine Americans doing this cleaning work and help these small and medium and large businesses be more stable, that's actually our bigger mission. We really we want to help uplift the the fairness of this work and get people more rewards. I think our chemistry can contribute to that.
Interesting. Cliff?
Yeah, thanks. Brian, I guess you had putzed around maybe with some other chlorine related products or other mold stain removing products and so on and so forth before. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we were looking for, or I was looking for, a better way to remove staining. So I think it started with a crawl space job. This probably was back in 2000, a while ago. And we were asked to we were asked to sand the crawl space. This is before I bought my soda blaster. So we were asked to sand the crawl space and then paint it by the IEP. And the third day of palm sanding in the crawl space, so we vacuumed the thing, and the third day of palm sanding in the crawl space, I got pretty frustrated, and I started to think there's got to be an easier way to get rid of the staining down here, because the homeowner's never going to be down here, and I'm not really sure why we need to make it that clean. So that's when it started. And then we played with all kinds of products. We did soda blasting. In fact, before we did soda blasting, we used corn cob. The first blasting job I ever did, we used corn cob, which has all kinds of problems that I don't want to talk about.
Right.
You know, this was a while ago. Yeah. And we just started playing around with different concentrations of oxidizers. I was using chlorine, peroxide, just about anything I get my hands on, and doing my own research, trying to figure out how to make that work better.
Well, I guess you might agree with a statement that it's easier to specify what needs to be done than actually physically doing what has been specified to be done. And I think a lot of times if you took these third-party IEPs and you just put them down there for an hour or so, just an hour of what we have to put up with, as Roger had commented, they might not recommend some of these things, which really are kind of impractical. So I think that's that's great advice.
I've done that. So many years ago, this again is 20 years ago, but I said, why don't you guys meet me on site? So we had the homeowner. This was a real estate transaction. So we had the seller, the buyer, each one's real estate agent. We had this, they were represented by Eli Lilly, which was it's a big pharmaceutical company here in town.
In India.
Yeah, so we had one of their biologists was there, and then we had a local indoor environmental professional, and we all met, and I said, why don't you guys come with me into the attic? So we had all these people in the attic, and I said, now you guys want me to sand that decking, and there's nails sticking through it.
That's right.
I'd like for one of you to try to sand that, and you tell me what a fair price is, and why we shouldn't just tear the decking off if that's really what you want done. So that was I couldn't agree with you more. It's a lot easier to say do X, Y, and Z than it is to do X, Y, and Z many times.
Joe?
You know, Brian, I've got a text question from the audience, and they're curious about, I guess, the fact that you're still getting real estate transaction projects. Their experience is more that on purchase, people were quite, they're trying to avoid even talking about mold, and then they're seeing purchases with no inspections, no contingencies. Has that affected you, or is it because you're in that rural area, you're not having that issue?
Oh, rural. Oh, you hurt my soul a little bit.
Well, I'm sorry, you're not that rural, but you're central Indiana.
Yeah, I was going to say Indiana is the universal hillbilly location on every movie ever made, I'm pretty sure. So in real estate transactions, you end up with mold in areas that people don't visit, don't see. So it's a large majority of them are attics and crawl spaces, where just, who gets in their crawl space until they're ready to sell their home. And then, what do you know? Maybe we should have got down there once after, over the last 20 years. So that's where the majority of it's at. The housing market here in central Indiana is so hot right now that has affected us somewhat. But because mold is now considered an environmental issue, it's generally one of the few things left to negotiate. So it's very difficult to negotiate smaller mechanical issues or smaller problems. But if you start talking about health issues, radon, mold, and asbestos, it's the last thing they've got to negotiate the price with. So it comes up extremely frequently, and it's generally something that the buyer wants done. What's happened in the last couple months, we've seen appraisers. So the deal's gone through, and to purchase it as is, where they're going to buy the home as it says. That's what they've agreed to. But the lender has said, no, we won't lend the money until you fix the mold problem. So I just looked at one of those in Beech Grove, which is a small community south of here. The buyer wants the house, the seller wants to sell the house, and the lender has said, no, you can't buy it unless you've passed this criteria. It's a FHA home, and they've actually they have certain requirements. So so Fannie Mae has requirements if they get involved, that if they know about a problem, they actually set up a requirement that you have to meet.
Okay, Cliff.
Yeah, Brian, how would you respond to some naysayers that would say that spray and go's insufficient remediation, and that pre and post remediation involving HEPA vacuuming both before and after is necessary?
I don't disagree with the need to HEPA vacuum if the goal is to remove the majority of dispersed spore particulate that has made it into your containment area or your room or your home, wherever you're remediating. And we do that. So the vast majority of work that we do is in non-living spaces, attics and crawl spaces. When we're doing work on the interior of homes, we do HEPA vacuum, and I do think that that's something that you need to do. We're not promoting a spray this and then fog that and then you're done. This is just a tool that we use when we're doing interior remediation work. So we do demo, we HEPA vacuum, and then when we're cleaning the framing, we use DOT. We use DOT cleaner as our primary cleaner. We can wipe with it, or we can spray the surface. People do different things. And then depending on what the requirements of the IEP are, or if I've written the scope of work, which happens a lot because we deal with a lot of uninsured people, we might seal a surface. We've got a job we're doing next week where the IEP wanted the wood sealed. So we're sealing the surfaces with a antifungal sealant.
Could I pitch in on that one as well?
Sure, absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, I think, other people have made such claims, but we actually have not made a spray and go claim. What we are really is a substitute for chemical products that can fit into a lot of different processes. And we really respect the fact that each remediator, each cleaning company has their process that they believe in, and they probably believe in it for a lot of good reasons. But I can give you an example of Tom Scrotsky, just west of me here in Springfield, Massachusetts, where what he found is it was able to simplify his process. He sprayed, DOT cleaner on a really difficult, mold job at first. Other products weren't working on it. And he calls Brian. He says, "What do I do now?" Brian says, "Go get lunch." He says, "What do you mean go get lunch?" He says, "Well, you let the product do its work. You don't have to scrub right away. Get out of there." So Mr. Scrotsky, Tom, tells his guys, "Listen, don't touch it. I'm going away. I want to come back. I want to see what it looks like." So he comes back about an hour and a half later, and the white wall looks really clean and restored. So he chews his guys out because he thinks they, wiped it down and painted it. And his guy said, no, the product just did its work. We just wiped down the excess spray. And so for him, it took a process that he had from 5 steps to essentially 3 steps, and saved labor hours. And in this labor market, it's tough for a small business. And so what he's finding with using DOT is he's just getting more cleaning out of fewer labor hours, and he's much more efficient, and it's just less harmful.
Let me jump in. I want to ask Cliff a question. Cliff scheduled this, and I want to know what drew you. I mean, you're the godfather of cleaning and restoration here. You manufactured products. What drew you to the DOT product, and what made you think, hey, there's some potential here? Maybe this is a way to go for some people in the future.
I think one of the things that drew me to it is We always talk about how smart the audience is, and they generally get the trivia question 30 seconds or something like that. And what happened is one of the attendees from the summit, Mike Miles, Joe, he somehow discovered it. And what he discovered wasn't DOT, I don't think. I think he discovered SUDOC as a company. And I went online and did the research and found all about the company. There are a whole lot of chemical companies, and I guess I'm no longer a recovering chemical manufacturer, right? I'm retired from that. But I think the thing that attracted me to it is the CMU connection. Carnegie Mellon University, the inventor, and the other things that they do. When you went on the website, other things that SUDOC is involved with, like making opioid disposal easier by mineralizing it and so on and so forth. This is probably the least sophisticated thing, perhaps that the company is involved in, and that's really what attracted me, because all the science, the scientists, and the people, and the connection is there. So that's really why I had kind of suggested that we do it, because we certainly know that a lot of spray and go guys have kind of wanted to be on the show, and we've been somewhat reluctant in the past in order to have them. But that's the answer.
Okay, and then I wonder if Roger or Brian, I don't know who would be better suited to answer this. Talk to us a little bit about the CMU connection and how this was developed.
Sure. Cliff, let me first of all just say thank you. We're a startup company. We've got resources behind us, but for us, we've really got a dream about how to use this chemistry, and every single person who sort of reaches in and takes an interest is wind in our sails. And so it's really, we really appreciate it. We were really lucky at the end of last year. Chemical and Engineering News named us one of the top 10 startups to watch. And of that list of 10 companies, we were the least capitalized. I think 8 of the other companies had more than $100 million of capital. And so we're sort of a David and Goliath story right now. We're the little guy, trying to punch above our weight. So
right.
Your interest is really useful. Terry Collins, just a remarkable guy. Think of Santa Claus if he came from New Zealand. Big heart, big personality. Funny New Zealand accent. And he is just absolutely, driven by the mission to reduce our chemical content. Listen, up to a year ago, the common wisdom was that we had about 140,000 chemicals in common usage. A study that came out about a year ago shows that we actually have 300,000 chemicals in common usage. A recent book that came out shows that male fertility has declined by 50% in the last 50 years and continues to go down. So these are serious impacts from exposure to chemicals and other factors, but chemicals being a major exposure that impact our lives. And so Terry has just looked for a better way. So following a process of biomimicry, which means that you study the way that nature is actually processing reactions, he found an enzyme in our liver that basically supercharges hydrogen peroxide, which is naturally found in the human body, and found a way to actually even amplify that. And so what TAMO chemistry is a different platform of catalysts. So we say catalyst, but it behaves fundamentally different than other catalysts. And it's a platform chemistry that, as you mentioned, Cliff, can be used in a lot of different things. We found that it is remarkable in breaking down the compounds that we find in opioids and other pharmaceuticals. So that's important to us as well. But it just essentially supercharges oxidation reactions, and that has a utility across many, many different applications. So let me pause there and just see where you want to take it.
Well, I think, what intrigued me when I started looking at it was that this little packet of, product and mixed with water, which is going to cut down on, the cost for transportation, storage, some of the legal requirements for sending products around and so forth. John, can you put the video up so we can kind of give people an idea of what this looks like and how it works? Perfect. So dilute oxidation technology, it just comes in a little, packet there. I'm not sure how many, there's probably 5 or 10 little packets in there, but he takes the packet out and you put some of this dilute oxidation technology NT7 into some water. And, it's just amazing how quickly it's ready to go. And it seems like it's a lot less trouble than some, dealing with jugs of liquid and containers and transportation. Here we go. He's mixing it up and scrub it on and then or spray it on and then let it sit for a while, like you said. And, you're going to get rid of a lot of your staining and some of the cosmetic issues that people find when they go and look at, projects that have maybe had a mold remediation done or had an old water leak of some kind. We run into it all the time up here. So it looks like an interesting product. Can one of you guys add a little to what I maybe missed there?
No, I think you got it really well. But you go, Ron.
Yeah, I'll just throw one thing in, which is the other advantage of this dry formulation. There is a carbon footprint advantage. This is 1/20th the amount of packaging, I think roughly 1/20th the weight. So it's much more efficient to ship than these large jugs of liquid. Maybe the most important thing is shelf stability. Your typical chlorine products on the shelf are degrading in a matter of weeks and may even degrade half-life over 6 weeks. This may be infinitely stable. We don't know yet. We haven't been in business long enough, but we guarantee this product for 2 years. And then a year from now, we probably think we'll guarantee it for 5 years. So you can keep this on your shelf in its dry formulation for a long, long time. And that means better inventory management, which also helps these small businesses. Hurricane season comes up. You can stock this. The hurricane misses you. It'll be good enough for the next season as well.
Interesting. And Brian, did you want to add anything?
No, I think you really got a lot of the benefits of the product. So it's pretty easy to work with. My guys have been using it now for, this we've had out since the end of last year, and my guys have been using it consistently since then. And they have found it to be easier to handle. It's safer than a lot of as far as they're concerned. It seems to be safer for them to work with. We haven't had any chemical burns or issues along those lines, and we have had that kind of problem in the past with higher concentration products.
What kind of PPE do you recommend for use with this product?
We still use when we're in an attic or crawl space. I know that there are guys out there that wear less than full face respirators and suits and gloves, but that's what we wear. So
yeah, it looked like you were wearing acid vapor respirators.
Yeah. Organic.
Well, that was my other main
vapor
question. You do use an acid vapor respirator cartridge?
Yeah.
Okay. And that makes sense. It seems as though, and is there another product you're working on that I'm a little confused on the difference between the hydrogen peroxide, the peroxide-based product and the other product?
Sure. Yes. I mean, we're working on a whole series of DOT products. So DOT is the brand that we have to cover all of our cleaning product applications. And kind of funny how mistakes can be the mother of invention, right? So we were trying to create a surface cleaning product, and we, just given the need, we were trying to put fragrances into the product and failed time after time. We went through like 30 different fragrances, hibiscus, lavender, whatever you could throw at us, we put it in. And what we found is the catalyst, Tamil chemistry, just destroys odor, just basically nullifies any odor. So we thought, well, let's turn this around. Instead of trying to add a fragrance, let's go after the stinkiest things we can find. So we started with fish, and found that we could basically leave a fish on a counter, let it go rotten, cleaned that surface, and the odor was gone. So then we thought, what would be worse than fish? And of course, my kids' athletic clothes is probably the next thing in mind. So we threw it in some laundry, compared it to sort of a national brand. And with the national brand, these socks still came out. You might fall over, Joe, if you smelt my son and daughter's socks. But when we did it with the Tamil chemistry, odor was it wasn't like a masked odor. It was just gone, totally gone. And so probably our next product, in sort of same dot fashion, but a different color code, is going to be an all surface cleaner / odor remover. We're working on it. And this one is with hydrogen peroxide. What we found on the mold formulation is the demand for the cleaning is strong. So it requires that extra strength. And when we got to those higher amounts of Tamil in the formula, essentially it was working so fast that with hydrogen peroxide that it wasn't feasible. We have some solutions for that. So we think we'll have a hydrogen peroxide mold stain cleaner in a year or 6 months from now. But with the surface cleaner, the demand isn't quite as high. And so we can use hydrogen peroxide on that one today. And we're really excited to be very close to launching the first hydrogen peroxide product.
And you mentioned Tamil. What is Tamil? Is that, I'm not sure I understand what that is.
Oh my goodness. So Tamil is the acronym for our chemistry. So it is a tetra amide macro, what was the last one, Brian? Ligand, sorry.
Ligand.
So there you go. You can look on our website. I haven't been asked that question for a few months, so you did.
All right.
Tamil chemistry is the chemistry invented and patented by Dr. Terry Collins, our hero at Carnegie Mellon University. Joe, would you like me to explain how it's different from other catalysts?
Yeah, can we do that after halftime though? Let's stop. We want to thank our sponsors real quick here, Roger, and then we'll do that. And then Cliff's got a question right after halftime. So we'll be back with our guests, Roger Berry and Brian Lester, in just about a minute and a half. Our marquee sponsor is First On Site, your trusted full-service disaster recovery and property restoration company at firstonsite.com. Our association sponsors are AIHA, Healthy Workplaces, A Healthier World, AIHA.org, ACGIH, Advancing Careers of Professionals in Environmental Health, Industrial Hygiene, and Safety, interested in defining their science, ACGIH.org, The Cleaning Industry Research Institute, see more deeply through science and research, CIRI Science.org. The Indoor Air Quality Association, IAQA.org. The IICRC, a nonprofit standards development and certifying body for the cleaning and restoration industry, IICRC.org. Industry sponsors are AEML Laboratories, free shipping, great pricing, same-day results with no rush fee, AEMLinc.com. Particles Plus, feature-rich particle counters and air quality instrumentation. Count on us, particlesplus.com. TSI Inc., an industry leader in precision instrumentation for monitoring indoor air. Learn how to expand your IAQ investigations, TSI.com. Sunbelt Rentals, availability, reliability, and ease for all your IAQ and restoration needs at sunbeltrentals.com. April Air, healthy home, April, AIRE.com. And Healthy Indoors Magazine, a free online magazine for industry professionals and consumers, healthyindoors.com. All right, we're back for the second half. We've got Roger Berry, Brian Lester. Roger, you were going to go into a little more detail before halftime there. Let's do that now.
Sure. Just to talk about the chemistry. So as I mentioned, this really is a platform chemistry. It falls into the category of catalyst, but in many ways, it's fundamentally different than other catalysts. It has its own properties. So Fenton chemistry, of which the form of chemistry that most catalysts belong to, essentially operates differently in two ways. So first, a catalyst, an iron-based Fenton catalyst, is essentially going to donate an electron to a hydrogen peroxide molecule such that it breaks it in half and creates a very reactive radical molecule. So that catalyst is actually altering the other molecule for that other molecule to do the job, and then it gets restored. And the other key thing to remember is a Fenton catalyst doesn't disappear. It stays, once it's restored that electron, it stays in being. So TAML chemistry is different in two ways. So first of all, instead of altering the other molecule for that other molecule to do the job, TAML chemistry steals an oxygen from an oxidant, whether it's hydrogen peroxide or hypochlorite, and delivers that oxygen atom to the site where basically a microfire in water happens, which is what oxidation is. And then it goes to the next oxidant molecule and stills the next oxygen atom and delivers it down. So it's acting like a shuttle. And the catalyst, our catalyst, TAML chemistry, is when you throw it in water by itself, does nothing. So it's inert. But when you throw it in water with the oxidant, it's continually taking these oxygen atoms and shuttling them and doing the job itself. Now, the other thing that happens is there's two chemical pathways. One is the one I just described, which is the productive pathway, which is doing the oxidation. But the other is a self-destructive pathway. And so once it's active, it becomes vulnerable to other molecules, but also to itself. And after a period of hours, it essentially has self-emulated itself and is gone. And so our catalyst does not remain in the environment, but basically disappears into its building blocks. So in that way, I'm not aware of any other chemistry that behaves that way. And that are some of the foundations of why this was a patentable chemistry.
Okay, Cliff.
One other thing, and we can kind of finish the chemistry, is what is mineralization, and when and where does that occur, and does that occur in the cleaning product or not?
Yeah, what we're referring to there is a bit of a shorthand for when we were talking about how other products that we're working on can break down pharmaceutical compounds. Right. And essentially, if we want to go into this a little bit, the way that waste opioids are taken care of today, and Cliff and Joe, I'm sure you're aware of the scourge of what's happening in our towns, cities. Personally, we've lost two teenage friends of families in Maine and New Hampshire, and it's just it breaks your heart to see what these drugs can do to families. And so we have found that this chemistry, TAML chemistry, essentially attacks the building blocks of opioids and other pharmaceuticals, such that when you put them in solution, they're gone. They no longer exist in the world. They're broken down into the harmless building blocks of atoms that they're built up on. Now, the way we take care of waste opioids today is essentially they're picked up at the site and they're bound to activated carbon in some way. And then they're moved, and they typically touch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of hands before they're sent to one of 14 incinerators around the country. And that gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opportunities for them to be diverted from that destruction process and recycled into the community. And activated binding to activated carbon, it's okay, but they still exist in the world, and a decent criminal chemist can reverse that process. And so our hope is that we can bring a solution closer to the source of the waste opioids, so it doesn't touch all of those hands and take all of that time to get it out of circulation. And that's just another thing we're working on. And given what this means to American families, it's really important.
Thanks, Brian. You're an inquisitive guy, and I'm wondering, after you've used this product on projects, have you done any testing or had any testing done, afterwards, in terms of clearances, and have you been surprised by any of the findings?
Well, I would be a terrible mold remediator if we were failing a bunch of tests before I started using DOT, and then we started passing them after. So,
Okay.
I don't know that I've seen an improvement, but we haven't had any difficulty with clearance. So it's just part of the process that we use for clearance. The vast majority of non-insured jobs that we do are visual clearance jobs. So just like we do more uninsured jobs than the average mold remediation contractor, we probably do more visual clearance jobs than most other remediation contractors. So, it looks clean, it smells clean. People who have had a problem can re-enter the area without being impacted.
In the video that you had, one of the things that you were spraying it on, I don't know, might have been drywall or might have been plaster, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a ceiling. And I guess, certainly we can see the mold on the outside, the piece that was facing into the house. Any concern about the opposing side?
Well, that's an interesting job there. So that is actually a pool room. That's a brand new ceiling. That ceiling is 3 weeks old. And they installed that ceiling, and they had no air controls for the indoor pool. And they thought that that would be an adequate solution to just run a regular air conditioner in there. So that's relatively new. So I'm not too concerned about anything on the interior on that particular job. That's from condensate exterior.
Joe?
Brian, I'm wondering, how do you approach projects? I mean, do you give them a suite of options? Okay, I can do the traditional HEPA vacuuming, wet wiping, HEPA vacuuming, again, the old HEPA sandwich, or I can, use this product, and we may or may not HEPA vacuum before and after, maybe just before to get the heavy stuff off. How do you approach that?
So we approach every project almost the same way. We identify what the problem is. We identify what the concerns are and what the goals are. And then we come up with a plan to achieve that goal. And then we stick a dollar amount to that. So we're very goal oriented, more so than process, we're goal oriented. Usually if I can create enough vulnerability in the client, we work on budgets. So for years, I've said, look, if you tell me you've got $50 to spend on this problem, I'll say, this is what you can do, the best you can do with $50. So a lot of times we're working with budgets where people will give me a budget to work within. And I think that's also unique. So we're just very goal oriented. Many, many times we offer differing degrees of care. So I usually say, how careful do you want me to be? The more careful I am, the more expensive it will be. So the more careful we are about cross-contamination, the more the cost will be. And when we're doing smaller things, so we've got a job we're doing on Monday. It's a small closet. It's 4 square inches of mold growth, but they wanted the highest level of care I could do. So there's going to be a full containment. Everything gets wrapped in plastic. We've got a decontamination chamber. We've got 2 HEPA machines running. I mean, it's a serious job for 4 square inches, but they wanted the absolute max, and they wanted to make sure that no mold got released. So we're doing that. So we do offer a degree of options for people based on budget.
And what industry standards and guidelines do you typically follow?
We tend to follow EPA guidelines. So we just use the mold remediation in schools and commercial buildings as kind of our grounding document. It depends on the job. So we've got another project we're doing next week, and we're following IICRC guidelines because that's what the IEP wants. And I said, no problem. We're certified. We can certainly follow those guidelines to the letter. And then I've done quite a few jobs in central Indiana for different universities, and they have their own on-site folks that have their own criteria. So we're very flexible. I usually say I need to know who the arbiter of clean is. So who gets to decide what's clean enough? And then that's the person that I want to make happy, whether it's with a process or a goal, doesn't matter. I just need to know who it is that gets to decide when it's clean enough and what does that mean? So you have to quantify that ahead of time. I get very nervous when we've put a proposal together and then there's a third party that's introduced after the fact.
Mhm.
That's something that we will literally back away from and reevaluate and say, this is not the criteria that I can't do a $5,000 job and do all of those things. It's just not going to happen.
Brian said something really important, which is about budgets, and also that sometimes people can't afford this. And that doesn't mean that mold, goes away as a problem for someone just because they can't afford it. It means it stays as a problem, and it causes all sorts of impacts on that family. One of the things that we're doing is we're creating what we call the DOC Give Back program. So key remediating companies that want to really partner with us, we're helping them by using some of our branding for them to become DOT ambassadors. And part of the agreement to be a DOT ambassador is to participate in the DOT Give Back program. And what that means is each year we're going to do a number of projects. I don't know, 4, 12, we'll figure that out, where we are going to donate free product and our DOT ambassadors are going to donate free services. And our goal is to help clean churches, synagogues, schools, low-income housing, and anywhere in the country, and really to give back to this country, because this is a serious issue. These are hardworking Americans that are doing a good job, and if we can collaborate to bring some of those services back to those who can't afford it, that would be a great goal. So that's the type of company we're building. Brian already does this. In spades in terms of his work. He's probably the most charitable guy I've ever met. But if we come back on your show next year, I hope we have 12 examples or more of projects that we've done in the DOT Give Back program.
Interesting. Cliff?
I guess, pound per pound, ounce for ounce, molecule for molecule. How does the DOT activator differ from TAED, tetraacetyl ethylene diamine, which has been used and been around for a long time and actually is considered safe, by the EPA Safer Choice program? So could you comment on that?
I can't comment on the other molecule. I just don't have the data in front of me. But what I can tell you is that this packet right here uses about 1/8 to 1/10 the amount of hypochlorite found in other products and performs as well or better than those products we've tested against. Okay. What I can also tease you with is that we think pretty soon, just given some things we've learned about the chemistry in practice, that is going to go down to less than 1/20th the amount of chemical. I don't think there's any other activator, as you call it, Cliff, that could have that effect.
I can speak to the TAED. So that's used in peroxide, and that's generally used to convert some of the peroxide to peracetic acid. And the TAML molecule is not acting in that way. So as Roger said, it's not converting to make it a more effective thing. It's actually working in conjunction with that thing. It's stealing the oxygen and utilizing it in and of itself. So it's just a different thing.
A couple follow-ups. What's the pH of the use solution?
Brian, you want to take that, or?
So currently the pH that we've got shipping out is about a 9.5.
Okay. All right.
So
I guess
down just a little bit.
So it's shipping out or the used solution?
Once it's mixed, it forms a 9.5 pH solution.
Okay. So you wouldn't be liberating hypochloric acid or anything like that from the chlorine by acidifying it. You're not adding anything to lower the pH. Okay. This is you're raising it.
Yeah. This is actually a high pH cleaning product. So we're not using hydrochloric acid to do anything. Too much chlorine off gas. Can't do that.
Yeah, but it's more powerful than the chlorine.
It is. I agree. But no, that's a different approach. I have tried that approach. So
yeah, if you're looking to sterilize it, it works pretty well.
Absolutely.
Joe.
Well, Brian, I'm wondering, okay, now that you're using DOT, are you also still using the other products that are commonly used? I assume, you get specifications from IEP saying, use this product here, that product. Are you still able to use other products as well?
Yeah, able. I can I mean, it's my business, so I can use whatever I want.
Right,
But we use DOT unless we're told we can't. So if, we've got a job we're doing next week, and they specifically requested that we use a peroxide-based product. We'll use a peroxide-based product because it's what they asked us to do. There's a local company for years that told us to use 1 part bleach to 9 parts water and a small amount of liquid detergent like Pine Sol,
Right.
or dish soap. The Pine Sol and bleach do not mix well together.
No. But you'd be
That's what they wanted. So
yeah, you'd be surprised how popular Dawn is in some of these protocols, actually. Yeah. Which
that's good branding.
Well,
you know, you got to give Dawn credit.
But Dawn is not a chemical. Dawn is not a chemical.
No.
Let's go to the roundup, John. The roundup is brought to you by April Air, providing healthy humidity, ventilation, and air purity solutions for new and existing homes. April Air, healthy air, healthy home at aprilaire.com. All right, Cliff, do you want to start it off, or you want me to?
Well, I have 2 questions, so you can either go first or second. I got one for each of them. So I guess for Brian, my question for you is: have you converted any naysayer IEPs into recommending DOT?
I'm working on one right now. So we have less interaction with IEPs, I think, than the average mold contractor does. So I certainly speak to them about each one. The guys I'm talking about converting are the bleach water Pine Sol folks. So they're already using a chlorine-based product.
Roger, my question for you, anything in the future, or are you thinking of going after some antimicrobial claims with EPA, product registrations, that sort of stuff? Any consideration there?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to use this chemistry as far and wide as we can. It can be used in a formulation that can be that could have disinfecting claims. Right now the EPA is very understaffed. It's you've got good scientists there, but they are very, very overwhelmed. The decision times are quite slow. So it's not so much from our point of view, but as much from the government efficiency point of view. But we will have a variety of cleaning products. We will have a variety of water treatment products. We will have a variety of products in the opioid and waste pharmaceutical space, and all of that. We've got a lot of work to do over the next 5 to 10 years.
I sure do. How are you? It seems like right now, Roger, that you're kind of working through individual remediation contractors, sort of like Brian and maybe others. What are the plans for the future? Are you going to be going to trade shows? Are you going to be advertising with some of the, industry media? What kind of game plan do you have for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were at a trade show. What was it, Brian? Three weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. Down in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Experience?
The Experience Conference down in Cincinnati. What a great place. I mean, it's great to sort of, pitch our product, but it's also just great learning. One small remediation, not small, probably medium-sized remediation company, came up to us and, basically picked up one of these packets and said, what the hell is this? How does that work for mold? What do I do? Throw the packet at the wall and it's going to do something? So, we started talking to the technicians and, asked them a very basic question, which is, what do you use now? And they said, we use X. I'm not going to name the product. And I said, well, how do you like X? And they say, we hate it. I go in there, I come home, my eyes are sore. I'm like, don't you wear PPE? And they say, of course we wear PPE, but you're stretching, you're reaching, it's just not, you got to understand what the job is like. And so I love hearing those stories because it makes me understand more about what these young guys, and in this case, a young woman as well, we're going through. And so then they brought over the top tech, and we went through the same conversation. Then 10 minutes later, they brought over the president of the company and went through the same conversation. Then it went quiet for a couple of weeks, but they got an email last week, said, we tried the product. and the technicians have recommended that we switch to your product, and we want to go. And so it's, Joe, it's one by one, right? It's relationships, it's learning, it's understanding what the work is like, it's responding, and keep working on the formula, keep working on the inventory, how we can help these companies. And so it's one by one. We started off in mold because we got Brian. Brian is he's so dug into all of this work, and he's given us an expertise. He is our product specialist in addition to being the head of his old mold remediation company. And, we want to grow this business to be a very big business, because that would mean it would have a big impact. Meanwhile, we're developing other teams to work on other solutions. But for us, this is 80% of our company's focus is this mold remediation cleaning services industry, and that's going to continue.
And Brian, if I asked and forgot, please forgive me, but are you still doing water damage projects as well, water damage restoration, or are you just focused on mold remediation now?
No, we're not doing any water. We just do mold. I did do my friend had a sump pump failure in his basement, so I did help set that up. But
I'm curious why, you've done water damage restoration. It seems like a pretty good industry right now. The companies are being bought and sold like crazy. Why did you focus on mold and not more on water damage?
The number one reason, I didn't want to work Saturday and Sunday and nights and weekends and holidays, and I was done.
That's a good reason, buddy.
I've got 6 kids. I've got 6 kids, and I can name 2 or 3 years where I missed every birthday, every holiday, and worked, 6, if not 7 days a week for, 50 of the weeks of the year. It was just, nervous breakdown time. I need mold, despite what some of our clients think, is not an emergency. It took a while to get there. Give me a couple weeks, we'll get you taken care of. But we just wanted to be done with the emergency game.
So Joe, don't distract my man Brian. We need him. We need him at shot.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, what's he going to do? Sell the mold company and go full time with Dot? But then I was thinking also, mold companies aren't exactly the best thing to sell at this point. But if a water damage company, certainly they're going like hotcakes right now. But just kind of curious. Now, before we go, we always ask the last question. Cliff, did you have any more you wanted to?
I'm good.
Okay. Before we go, final thoughts. Anything we missed? Anything you'd like to add? Let's start with Brian and then finish with Roger.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity just to talk to you guys. You've been absolutely fantastic. We really think this is a unique product. It's unique. It's been a major improvement for my own people. So I've had access to this technology longer than just about anybody else. We've been using it for a lot of years. And the NT7, which is the newest version of this technology, really was a game changer for us. So,
in what way?
Well, we were using about a 4% solution. So I was using an older version of this technology for over a decade. And it worked well. It definitely improved performance, but with the new NT7 molecule, which is just tweaked a little bit, they keep tweaking it a little bit. So the new NT7 molecule we were able to get similar performance at 1%, and as Roger said, we're actually looking to cut that down even more. So it's just been a major change for my employees. I don't have to worry about them running into problems, so it's easier for them to work with.
And by the way, my Roger, my wife Dottie loves your company name, and she wants a T-shirt. So
we can send some along, Joe. No,
she also said you guys should be on Shark Tank. Final thoughts, Roger?
Listen, I want to thank you guys for bringing these issues to the country. The people we work with is the best part of the job. And you don't just come out of the box and start a company and have a product that's a home run. And we've had some mistakes, right? And what's been really cool, we started off with a tablet formulation, and this thing would dissolve like butter in the lab, but would not dissolve like butter in the field. And you got guys like Chuck Sardellis running a company in Michigan who, instead of saying, throwing these things away and saying, get out of my hair, calls you up and spends an hour and talks about, how it could be done differently. And you work, through these issues with guys like Chuck and Tom and Brian, and you keep iterating and you keep working, and you get it back, and you start getting believers. And, so building a good company is really about listening, and really about having patience, and not being afraid to make some mistakes, and keep correcting. And thanks to all of those early adopters for, helping us get to where we are today, which is a pretty darn good product, and where we're going to be tomorrow, which is a pretty darn even better product. So keep working with us. If you're in this industry and want to be part of this mission and this story, call us and reach out to us. We, any point of interest just is wind in our sails, and we just appreciate it.
Very good. What's the website so people know?
Yeah, .cleaner.com. So www.dotcleaner.com. You'll see Brian's pretty face splashed all over it. And hopefully there's some good information there for you.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much. This is Radio Joe Hughes saying thanks to this week's guest, Brian Lester, Roger Berry, Dot Cleaner. Interesting. I know my wife loves that name. But anyway, we'll be. I also want to thank John. You got to have faith at the controls. My co-host, the Z-Man, Cliff Zlotnick. Most importantly, our growing group of loyal listeners. We'll be back next week. By the way, next week we got Dr. Joe Spurgeon coming back. Dr. Joe, we're going to talk a little bit about some of this, ERMI and Hurts Me and Dr. Joe's books, and again on mold assessment issues, and looking forward to a great show on next week's IAQ Radio. So come back next Friday at noon for the next episode of IAQ Radio Plus.
For IAQ Radio, I'm Spike Reel saying thanks for listening.